Twoway. Okay, good evening, everyone. We are learning Torah Chaf Aleph, and what we have said so far is that this particular Torah is based on the fourth chapter of Sifra Tzniusa. That's the hidden sefer that was written by Yaakov Avinu. And we have Sefer Yetzirah that was written by Avraham Avinu. We have Sefer Tzniusa. We have 5 chapters of this, which was written, as I said, by Yaakov Avinu, and it can be found in Sefer HaZohar and Pashas Truma. This is where the 5 chapters are brought down, and this is the only thing that we have, the only sefer that we have from Yaakov Avinu. It's a very, very deep Kabbalah sefer, and parallel to every chapter, there's a Torah in Likutey Moharan, and this particular one is based on the 4th chapter. And the first, the verse that is brought down from the 4th chapter is as follows. Pirkei Revia the Sefer Tzniusa, the 4th chapter of the Sefer Tzniusa, it says as follows: Atiko Tamer V'Sosim. The level of Atika, which is the level of the Keser, the Sphira of Keter, is Tamir V'Sosim. It is concealed and unknowable, unfathomable. It's not impossible. It's impossible to get to know it. Zira de Anpin, however, in the level of Zira de Anpin, he says, is Galia, the law is Galia. It has an aspect of known and unknown. Alpi Pshat. But the meaning of it is that in the realm of Atzilus, we have Indian that we have 5 spiritual personas. It's called Arichanpin, who's also known as Abba, as father. Ima, we have Abba and Ima. This is Chochma and Bina. Then we have Zer Anpin. Zer Anpin is a Bechina in underneath it. And then we have Nukba. Then you have the female, the Malchus, the Makabel. Now, the Arichanpin, that it says the great face, is also called Atik. And that level is totally undifferentiated as far as we are concerned. It's unfathomable, unknowable. It is beyond the human comprehension. There's no way we can comprehend it. The lower level, which is the level of Zer Anpin, it has certain aspects of it that is knowable, that is open, and certain aspects that is not knowable. It is in that part of Zer Anpin, which is knowable, that it has the 6 Sefirot of Chesed, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, also known in the language of the Kabbalah as Vav Ktsovas, the 6 directions. So we say that the Atik, there's no revelation, there's no revelation of Shem Havaya Baruch Hu. There's nothing we can know about it. There's no details. In Zeir Anpin, there are already details, different Shemas Havaya that are expressed in it. And this particular Torah is based on the pasuk which Moshe Rabbeinu says to Aaron HaKohen, Ba'aloscha Saneros, in Pashas Ba'aloscha, he tells Aaron HaKohen, when you are lighting up the candles, Ba'aloscha Taneros, El Mul Pnei Menorah, facing what they call Pnei Menorah, the face of the menorah. Now, when you light up the menorah facing the menorah, we'll see this distinction of lighting the menorah, facing the menorah. We'll see that these are two separate inyonim. It's a very, very important distinction, as we'll see on. But when you light up the menorah, facing the menorah, Ya'iru Shiva Saneros, let the 7 candles burn. What it means, la'alocha, is that when he told them, la'alocha, when you light up, you the Kohen, you're lighting up the candles of the candelabra, make sure to keep your hand, the flame, by the wick until the wick catches fire and the flame is already burning before you take away your hand. And this halacha is also applicable to Neres Chanukah. It's also applicable to Neres Shabbos. You're supposed to hold your hand by the wick until it burns on its own. The Indian is besides this Indian, the Kabbalistic Indian is that if you just touch it, and it's sort of like this little spark that has that, and then the spark grows by itself and catches the wick, it's as if at a certain aspect it's lighting itself. It's not you who are lighting the wick, as it were. So the halacha is you're supposed to hold your hand by the wick until it's burning properly. The flame comes up on its own. On this particular pasuk, this Torah is revolving, and we'll understand what is being spoken to, the relationship between that particular pasuk of Savadas Niusa. You have Atika, which is unknowable. Then you have Zeir Anpin, part of it is knowable, part of it is not. Then we have Ba'aloscha as Pnei Menorah Ya'iru Shiva Saneros. So Rabbeinu starts by saying there are 2 modes of learning, of understanding. There is an aspect which is called backwards, it's called achol. And there is an aspect which is called Kedam. There's a pasuk in Tehillim that is expressing the metzias of Adam Arishon. It says, Achol v'kedem tzartani. You have formed me backwards and forwards. And basically, al pi pshat, it means that first Adam and Chava were a single entity that had dual faces. They had one side was Adam, was the male. It's called Kedam, and one side is called Achar, which is Chava. Then it was split, and the rest, as they say, literally, is history. So Rabbeinu says here we're talking about 2 levels of 2 modes of learning, of acquiring knowledge. One of them is called Achar, it's called backwards. The other one is called Kedem, it's called forward. Achar is the regular mode of learning of the entire world. The only thing that a person can possibly understand and learn and figure out are things that are based on prior knowledge. The initial understanding is predicated on the five senses. These are things that you saw, things that you heard, things that you tasted, things that you smelled, things that you felt. And everything is based upon that. And then you are able to get some understanding. And upon that understanding, you are building on top of that, but more, a little bit more, a little bit more. So that is the way that people are learning all over, in universities and schools and yeshivas and whatever it is. Basically, you're learning things which are based on things that you have learned before. So the thing that you have learned before is called a hakdama. It's called a preamble. It's called an introduction. So you learn first that 1 + 1 is 2. And then you're able to learn that 2 + 2 is 4. Without understanding that 1 + 1 is 2, you cannot understand that 2 + 2 is 4. And then upon that, you learn multiplication. For multiplication, and then you can learn, division, and so forth. But every single continuation and progression is based upon the hakdama, the preamble that came before it. So all this mode of learning means, all this mode of intelligence means you can only learn and understand and comprehend things which you have previously experienced. One of the reasons that, for instance, people that are not predisposed, that their brain is not high-wired to math, so you can see that more students have problems with math than practically any other subject in school. The question is, why is that? Math, ultimately, is the simplest of all the subjects. But together with the time, in math, the only thing you need to do is just figure it out. That's all you need to do. But the problem with math is there's no other subject in which the next thing you understand is so heavily predicated and dependent on understanding the steps that came before it. And the reason why people have problems with math is not because math in and of itself is a difficult thing to master. It is not. To be good at it is something else. But to understand it, basically, it's a very easy thing to do. But the thing is that in class, if you happen to have either you have problems, attention deficit disorders, or else, as it's very prevalent that kids have problems at home. And when they have problems at home, their minds are busy with trying to figure out, actually their minds is filled with noise that they bring from home. So what happens is that when they learn math in schools, what happens is it's like at a certain point in time, their fingers are in their ears. They don't hear the teacher. And then there are certain times in which they take the fingers out. Then they hear what the teacher's saying. So if you're learning history, there's no problem. You don't know what Charles V did, but when you get to Frederick the Great, you understand, you hear, you listen. So you know that. This you don't know, this you do know. One thing doesn't depend on the other. But with math, it's all one chain. If you're taking away a link from the middle, the whole thing falls apart. That's the reason why most people have problems unless, of course, they have natural talent for that, with math. Math is the epitome of Pchinas Sechel, Pchinas Achar, a mode of learning, of intelligence, of acquiring intelligence and knowledge, which is based on that which came before it. This is called Achar. And then there is a whole different kind of mode of intelligence, which is called Kedam. This is when the intelligence comes to a person, b'shefa eloki, with a heavenly bestowment. It's an influx of understanding that comes from above. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything, that there's no build-up towards it. It's not based on things that you have learned. It's not a conglomeration of all the building blocks of knowledge and comprehension which you have from before. It's totally new. A prime example for such a knowledge is the Torah. Moshe got the Torah from Sinai as one full, complete system of knowledge, which is not based on anything that came before it. Nothing in the experiential history of humanity have ever prepared people to getting the Torah. The Torah is a totally new knowledge, a whole system. And over here, this is a system that comes down from ahead of you. It's not something that's based on what came before you, but it's something that comes from ahead of you towards you. This is called Kedam. Achor v'kedem tzartani. You have created me with Achor, and you created me with Kedam. So comes the question, so why are we locked on to the mode of learning of Achor? Why are we not learning b'fchinas Kedam? The mode, as we will learn soon, the mode of Kedam is dormant. There's a capacity in every person to learn b'fchinas Kedam, but that b'china is dormant. And it has to be awakened. It has to be enabled. The switch has to be turned on, as we will learn how to do it a little bit later. That's the first building block of this Torah. The second building block of this Torah, Rabbeinu says that when a person gets a sechel b'shefa eloki, when a sechel gets something, a person gets something in one fell swoop, when suddenly, boom, you get the whole thing, that fills the heart, that fires up the heart. It gets a person really excited, gets a person really into whatever it is that he's learning. And we gave an example. It's actually an example of Reb Shimon Teichner. When we said, when you hear a joke is something that's made out of two opposites. It seems to be going in one direction, and suddenly something surprising goes in the other direction. And when you get it, you get the whole thing in one fell swoop. Boom, you get the whole thing. For instance, the lion is getting married. No, if the lion is getting married, obviously all the animals come. If the lion is getting married, is the king of the animals, everybody comes. So the mouse comes to the wedding, writes out a check, gives it to the lion. He says, "Here you go, my brother, Mazel Tov." So the lion gets upset and says to the mouse, since when am I your brother? So the mouse says, because before I got married, I was also a lion. So when the alarm, because the unexpected thing, okay, now so everybody is laughing because they got the whole thing in one shot. Now there's somebody that didn't get it, didn't get the joke. So this is why you're laughing. So they tell him, listen, there's a mouse. A lion made a wedding. So first, yeah, but since when do a lion gets married? Let's say they do, okay? So let's say the lions get married, whatever it is, and all the animals, how come the lion doesn't eat them? Because it's a wedding, it's a joke, man. Okay, fine. So the mouse is coming. Now, the mouse is writing a check, he's giving it, calling him a brother, okay? By the time the person finally gets the whole thing, as we said, is very likely to ask, okay, so which point do you laugh? Because, as they say, when you explain a joke, you know more, but you get less, right? Because you didn't get the whole thing in one shot. You got it one little step at a time. So by the time when it comes to the end, it's not bevas achas. It's not in one shot. It's not one fell swoop. So it's not funny. The heart does not get excited by it. The havdil, that's what you can see, tzaddikim, or old people, can hardly move. They get asagas niflas and they're fired up and they're flying. Why? Because they get a whole system, the whole thing in one shot. Each time they get a new asaga, they attain a new level. That level is gavor mal gavor, is high beyond high. And they get it in one shot. Rabbeinu says that when you get that, when the mind is working and getting the whole thing in one shot, mind is moving quickly, that fires up the fire of the heart. That the heart of the flame of the heart is burning constantly. You have to get yourself excited about Yiddishkeit. You don't have to get excited about anything, because it's Shalev v'Salev Olam Eleh. This is the two basic building blocks of this Torah. Then we learn that to come to the Shefa Eloki, in other words, to switch on the switch of the divine learning, where you get the Shefa Eloki coming to you without any preambles, without any preparations. You have to sanctify the 7 candles of the human candelabra. Zaraco says that every person has the holy candelabra in his head. The 2 ears and the 2 eyes and the 2 nostrils and the mouth, these are the 7 candles of the candelabra. So Ben is saying is that in order to, now what we understand, ears, eyes, nose, and mouth, we understand them as the tools that the brain has in order to see, in order to hear, in order to smell, in order to taste and to speak. Okay? In other words, the eyes don't see. They're just the messenger boys of the brain. The brain sees. The ears similarly don't hear. Yes, physically they hear, but it's the mind, the brain that hears. And it's the brain that smells. And it's the brain that talks. So all these are just tools, are the intermediaries for the brain. So it's really, the brain with some, the end stations and the tools that it has in order to feed it, sight and sounds and smells and unable to, enable the brain to express the thoughts that it has. Okay? Rabbeinu is now telling you that they are more than that. It is a two-way street. It's not only that the brain operates the eyes and the ears and the nose and the mouth, but it also works backwards. It is the mouth and the nose and the ears and the eyes that are operating the brain. What I mean, they are awakening the brain, and they are making the brain enabling to switch a mode from an aspect of learning of achar, of backwards, and they're awakening the brain, so the brain will start perceiving das, pchinas kedem, pchinas forward, as we will see later. And Rabbeinu says that, what does it mean that Rabbeinu says that you're supposed to sanctify your mouth and your nose and your eyes and your ears, and they're the ones that light up the Shefa Eloki, that they switch on the switch in the brain to perceive Shefa Eloki. The question is, how do you sanctify? How do you sanctify the das? How do you sanctify the mouth and the nose and the ears? What would you take into the mikveh? What do you do? So the answer is that the mouth, a person is supposed to keep himself from saying a lie. Now, saying a lie is not just somebody asks you, did you do this? And you happen to have done it, and you say, no, I didn't do it. But it's also has to do with what the Rebbe Sol Salanter says, that the person should not say out of his mouth something that his heart does not testify that it is the truth. In other words, you need to know in your heart that what you're saying now is the truth. There are many levels to that. There is, of course, the facts. And there is, of course, when you're coming, you're amongst people, and you don't misrepresent yourself as being bigger than who you are. But also keeping your mouth from saying a lie. And beyond that, in the davening itself, do you mean what you say? Do you even care? Because if you care and you want to daven be'emes, only what can you do? There's Mashava Zoros. That's one thing. If you're battling, that means that you're saying the truth, even though l'maisa, you're saying a lot of the davening without meaning what you say. But saying a lie is when you come to davening, you don't even care. You have to eat breakfast. You need to say the words that are there. It's not even an issue by you. It's a part of what you do. I mean, I daven. What can I do? I belong to this society. This is what it is. And that as they say that a chassan during his Sheva brachas, during Mondays and Thursdays can probably cover up all the expenses of his chasana by saying, do you want me to come to Yeshul to be in Yeshul? So you have to say the long tachnan before Kriyas Torah, right? So you can make a lot of money doing that, as it were. That is called saying a lie, living a lie. Then Rabbeinu says the nose, sanctifying the nose, Rabbeinu says a person should have Yiras Shamayim. So ostensibly it's not understood. What does it mean a person should have Yiras Shamayim? What action do you do to have Yiras Shamayim? Yiras Shamayim sounds like a passive thing. Like a nose is a passive thing. Or the ears are passive things. So what does it mean that the person should have Yiras Shamayim? Rabbeinu says the same thing in Torah Hey. Gam yelo Yiras Shamayim, you should have Yiras Shamayim. What is the action of having Yiras Shamayim? The action of having Yiras Shamayim means that there is a certain das, certain, you know what the truth is. Baruch Hashem, you're a believing Jew. You know you should stay away from certain things. You should not do certain things. If you were a Yiras Shamayim, if you feared Hashem properly, there are certain things you would not do. Now, each and every one of us has a level in which we feel the Yiras Shamayim. The things we don't do. We don't kill people. We have Yiras Shamayim. We don't kill people. We don't steal. No. Do we always tell the truth? With this, whatever. But we don't. There's certain levels of the basic level of Yiras Shamayim. Each one differs from the other. That's his level. Now, what about, let's say, speaking Lashon Hara? What about, being careful with the things that come out of your mouth, and so forth and so on? These things may be above our pay grade, might be above the pay grade of our own Yiras Shamayim that we actually feel, that we actually, our station, as it were. To have Yiras Shamayim means to behave according to a higher level of Yiras Shamayim, even though you don't feel it yet. And it's something that needs to be understood, because by and large, Averis have their own gravity pull. Once a person comes too close to the gravity pull of an Avera, especially if he has been there before, if he's susceptible to it, he's going to get sucked in. If an alcoholic, as a clean alcoholic, is going to get into a bar in order to collect a debt from somebody, chances are he's going to come out drunk. The minute he gets too close to the temptation, he's a goner. He's done. He's finished. Yiras Shamayim means that before, Rabbeinu says it has to do with the nose. The nose is Yibarichu b'yiras Hashem. It means that every single Avera has a a smell. Before the Avera itself, there's a certain kind of glee, a certain kind of like, yeah. In Hebrew, they call it yesh matzav. There's what to talk about. You know what's coming. Even if nobody is talking, there's excitement in the air. To have Yir Shemayim is to understand that when this excitement comes, this is your last chance to apply the brakes. That excitement is the harbinger of the Avera. To have Yir Shemayim means to put, to slam the brakes right then and there. That is the active action of Yir Shemayim. Rabbeinu says that the sanctification of the ears is emunas chachamim. I said, what's pshat of emunas chachamim? What, to believe that somebody is a chacham, somebody is you're supposed to know. If he's learning Torah, if he's teaching Torah, he has talmidim, he has a track record, whatever it is. So I'm saying, he's a chacham. What do you mean you're supposed to believe that he's a chacham? You're supposed to know that he's a chacham. But the answer is that once you already know that he's a chacham, you're supposed to believe that it's not just that he knows more than you. It means that he lives in a different universe than you do. It means that, as Rabbeinu says, in all the words of the Chacham, there are secrets. The exalted secrets behind every single thing that he says. When you go to a doctor and a doctor says something, you realize there's a lot of knowledge behind the simple words that he tells you. He's just telling it to you according to your level. But there's a lot of different give and takes, that's the reason why you trust him, because you realize that he does that. Kal v'chomer when you're talking about tzaddikim. And the main thing, which is the rectification of the ear, just believing that tzaddikim are great people and they're godly people and there are secrets behind everything that they say, is not enough. You yourself need to be a chacham as well. What does it mean? It means that when you approach the chacham, what you want to hear from him is a teichacham. You want to hear from him an admonishment. You want to hear from him a verification of what the truth really is. You're not interested in feel-good situation. You're not interested in an advantage, in a quarrel. You don't ask the Rav what the halacha is in order to get out of him the answer that you want him to give you. You don't want his stamp of approval. You don't want him to rubber stamp you. You want to hear from him what the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants from you. So the sanctification of the ear is really twofold. One of them is believing in the Chacham, in the kedusha of what he's saying to you, and the second is you're coming to him ready, willing, and able to understand what it is that you're doing wrong. If you're not interested in that, you can believe in him, which is a great thing, but you're not going to improve. This is not the shleimus of emunas chachamim. As we will see, when a person gets a shleimus of emunas chachamim, the shleimus of the ears, he gets a great serenity, great menuchas hanefesh. He doesn't get upset. He lets things go. lets things slide. He's patient, because, as we say about impatience, is kotzer af, a shortness of breath, shortness of nose. Patience, emuna, das, it's called erech hapayim. This is an outcome of shlemus hachotem and shlemus oznaim. And then we have the sanctification of the eyes. Means don't look at where you're not supposed to look. This is the Kedusha Sinai. So this is the mouth and the nose and the eyes and the ears are those that awaken the brain to switch modes from B'chinas Ochar to B'chinas Kedam. And now Rabbeinu is taking each and every one of them and shows that the mouth, the nose, the ears, and the eyes all have a two-way street connection to the brain, to the moach. And that is not just that they are the tools of the moach, but the moach is directly connected into them. It's a two-way street. And this is what it says. V'zeh b'chinas rosh dvarcho emes. Rosh, the head of dvarcho, of your speech, is emes. So the rosh is alluding to the mind, to the brain. Dvarcha is talking about the mouth, right? Rosh, dvarcha, emes. Stay away from lie. You have the whole bechina of sanctification of the mouth. It's connected to the brain, but it's all one system. This is the moach that is said about the mouth. As it is said, now the second thing, now we're going to the nose. Nose is Baruch Yiras Hashem, that's Yir Shemayim. It says, Reshis Chochma, Yiras Hashem. So it says the Yira, which we said is the nose, is dependent in Reshis, in the Yira, in the Chochma. So we know that the nose and the brain and the Yira are all one thing. It's a whole complete app, an application that's tied together. Now we're moving on to the ears. Admonish a wise man and he will love you. Admonish, a joker, V'yisneka is going to hate you. So we say, here's half of the equation. If you admonish somebody who is smart, he will love you for telling him what's wrong with him, because he knows that you want his benefit, you want his good. If he's silly, he'll think you're just trying to, be somebody great, put him down or whatnot. This is the moach that is said about the ears. Now we're talking about the second part of the equation. The first part of the equation talks about how you are listening to the Chacham. You're listening in order to improve yourself. You're not in it, to have fun. You're not in it in order to feel good. You're in it in order to improve yourself. That makes you wise. Shema Divrei Chachamim means that when you will listen to the words of Chachamim, it is commensurate with how much faith you have in them. If you believe that they are holy and their words have tremendous secrets in them, you're listening to what they're saying very, very differently. Because if you think that they're just knowing a little bit more than you, and suddenly, they don't treat you that nicely, then you can get you can get your feathers ruffled. I'm not so happy about this. But if it's somebody very, very great that you believe have tremendous emunah in their words, what you feel or not feel, if they put you down, if they make you feel bad, they're doing a favor to you. They're doing a favor to you. They're mamting the dinim from you. If you believe in them, you'll know that they sweeten the dinim from you. They're sweetening the verdicts from you. You don't lash out, but you accept it. If you believe in them. If you don't believe in them, no, so they're not any better than you. So who are you to make me feel? Who the heck are you? So Emunas Chachamim has these two sides. You have to believe in the Chacham, that what he tells you is godly. At the same time, you have to come with the approach that you want to become better. You don't care about being made to feel better. That's not what it's about. You want to improve yourself. You have to be a Chacham and you have to believe in the Chacham. That's why in Bad Years, Ravina brings two psukim. And the last one, this is the ears. Now we get into the last one. And both their eyes, they were open. Here we're talking about Adam and Chava, which ate from Eitz Hadas. This is the mind that talks about, which is tied in with the eyes. What happened with Adam and Chava when they ate from the tree from Eitz Hadas? So both their eyes were opened. What did they realize? Rashi says, here we're talking about the Chokhmah. They gained Chokhmah. What Chokhmah did they gain? They made, the biggest mistake in human history. So what Chokhmah did they get? That their eyes opened. So the Torah says their eyes opened and they saw that they were naked. The Medrash says, you know what Chokhmah they learned? They realized they had one mitzvah. That's it, just one mitzvah. Don't eat from that tree. And now they're naked from that mitzvah. That's the Chokhmah that they learned. Rabbeinu says, Vehen Shivas Aneris, and these are the 7 candles. Kiapeh, V'tren Nuk Bechutma, the 2 nostrils, V'tren Einen, and the 2 eyes, V'tren Udni, the 2 ears, Hem Pchinas Shivas Aneris, that's the 7 candles. Umenarto, and the actual body of the menorah, which that's akin to the head of the person. Hainu Moech, that's the brain. Because the head and the mouth and nose and the ears are all dependent on the brain, like the candles that are affixed to the menorah. Now, and Pnei menorah. Now, if you remember, we said, he says, when you're lighting up the menorah, you should be standing mul Pnei menorah, facing the face of the menorah, facing the menorah. Pnei menorah, Hainu Shefa Eloki. Now you have flipped on the switch. If you have lit up the 7 candles, which B'ezrat Hashem will talk about it more the next time, that flicks on the switch and you become Pnei menorah. You get a Shefa Eloki, B'ezrat Hashem. Then it shifts the moyach from Pchinas Kedam to Pchinas Ponim. B'ezrat Hashem, next week, we will summon this up and we will continue. Thank you very much. for coming this week. I appreciate it. I hope that I haven't stumbled along too much. Because Baruch Hu should help us. Bezrat Hashem should all have a good Shabbos. And Bezrat Hashem, I will see you guys on Motzei Shabbos, 9 o'clock, when we will learn in Mitzvah Hashem Sichos Haran. So you all have a good Shabbos, and all the very best to every one of you. Kol Tov and good Shabbos.